Before this episode starts, we would just like to thank you guys for your constructive criticism and thoughts on the last episode. We know the sound was not at its best, and we will be switching recording providers within the next few weeks. As well, I just want to thank you guys, and we really do appreciate you for listening, so we want to make sure it's the best quality that we can. Anyways, enjoy the episode. Here we go again. We hit the big lucky number 7 episode here today. It is Wednesday the 12th, and I'm joined by Hayden, and finally, after a 2-episode stint of not being able to attend, it's Isaac, right? Would you guys like to say hello?
Yeah, glad to be back. Absolutely. Same as Isaac. Good to go, get the crew back together. Let's get into it.
Isaac, you weren't here for the past 2, so I just want to let the people kind of get to know your takes on maybe these 2 separate things, 2 of the bigger topics we talked about when you were gone. You obviously haven't got to say anything about the Super Bowl and either the NBA trade deadline, so I just want you to go into some minuscule thoughts if you have anything extra to add or tell us about.
Well, I mean, starting off, I think obviously I wasn't right. If anybody, listened to our last few podcasts, I wasn't right in my predictions with the Super Bowl. I thought the 49ers were going to go ahead and pull it out. I thought that they had a good chance to, especially going up, by 10 with after the second interception that Mahomes threw. I thought it was a pleasant surprise that the Chiefs came back. I was definitely rooting for them. I was happy to see it. I thought that, I am frustrated that Mahomes got the MVP nod. I think that he had 3 very average quarters and a phenomenal fourth quarter, but I thought that Damian Williams really put that team on his shoulders with his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield and what he was able to do on the ground. I think that the storyline out of that one is what does that mean for Damian Williams and next year's fantasy potential? Because I drafted him early and he really didn't do anything for me. I traded him by week 4. He was irrelevant. Shady McCoy was getting a lot of the carries. So what does that mean for fantasy now that he had that strong outing? I mean, what did he have? He had a few touchdowns, 4 or 5 receptions, just did a lot of damage to them on the ground. I think without him, I think we're talking about a different outcome from the at the Super Bowl. Definitely was a big fan of the commercials, but I think I may touch on that later. As far as the trade deadline goes, I think the biggest trade that I can talk about is I really, 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 really like what the T-Wolves did in getting D'Lo. And not that I don't think Wiggins is a good player, but I think that D'Lo stretches the floor a lot more than Wiggins did. He's a more scoring threat. Obviously, he's not going to be the same player on the defensive side of the ball. He's not as long or lanky, doesn't necessarily have the reach or athleticism that Wiggins did or provided, I think. But I think that it opens the door to really, develop Culver as a player. And I think that that's their goal. They got rid of Teague earlier in the season to open the door for Culver to get more minutes. I think he's taken advantage of it. He's looking like a good young player, the future, somebody that could definitely be a provider on offense. So I really like it. I don't think anybody lost. I just think it's who won the trade more, because I think that the Warriors got a good player in Wiggins. You don't necessarily have to rely on him, especially when Clay and Steph come back. So I think that he's going to provide a good 3-and-D guy. Obviously, they have phenomenal perimeter shooting, so it's not like they needed to add that. But I don't think it hurts them at all. Probably a little bit of a cheaper player. I haven't taken a peek at their contracts, so you guys may be able to help me out there. But I like the Marcus Morris pickup. Overall, I think that adds depth to probably the team with the most depth. Besides, you could throw the Bucks in the conversation. I know the last podcast, Hayden made that argument, and I agree there that the Bucks have good depth, and I think the Clippers are just adding to that. Is there any big? I think the Andre Iguodala trade is way blown out of proportion for what they. I don't really think anybody gave up too much to get him, but I just don't think he's the same player that he was a few years ago. I think he'll add experience to the team that needs it, but I don't think that makes the Heat. Some people are talking, maybe they'll move him up to a 2 or 3 seed. I don't think that makes him that team. But we'll see. Overall, I thought it was pretty anticlimactic for a trade deadline, especially considering what everybody was considering was going to happen. I will say, just a personal bias, I was happy that Oklahoma City held on to all their players, and I'm excited to see where that goes. My prediction right now is I think they go ahead and they climb up to that 6th seed in the West, but we'll see.
That would be interesting for sure, because I don't think anyone had Oklahoma going to the playoffs to begin with at the beginning of this year. But moving on to I'm sure if you were on Instagram and Twitter today, you saw the NFL world blowing up over Tom Brady possibly going to the Chargers after the Chargers posted on Instagram about Philip Rivers' retirement and him leaving. Or not retirement, excuse me, but him leaving. And Brady liked it, and, NFL Twitter went wild thinking Brady's going to the Chargers. But do you guys think that Philip Rivers and Tom Brady can both succeed elsewhere at the ages they are at?
I believe Tom can. I don't think Philip Rivers has ever been too good of a quarterback. I don't think he will be elsewhere. I don't know of a place for him, where he's, how is he better than Tannehill at this point? Maybe he throws less interceptions than Jameis in Tampa Bay. Maybe he doesn't. We watched Philip on back-to-back primetime games throw, 5 interceptions in the fourth quarter of 2 games. Tom Brady, though, I think he would fit in somewhere, just being a short check down quarterback that he is. Not necessarily sure where it'd be. I'd like to see him go to Indianapolis. And back to the Colts, because I remember kind of what we were all hoping to see out of him. Maybe not you, Pete, but expecting to see a little more out of him this season before the surprise retirement there of Andrew Luck. But it'd be fun to see him on a team like the Colts. The Chargers, maybe, although, who knows with the Chargers. Obviously, a good football team who was on the tail end of too many one-score games this year. But it'll be interesting. I think he can succeed. Obviously, he's succeeded his whole career, but Philip Rivers, he never has, and I don't see it changing.
I think I'm going to completely take the opposite angle. Before I say anything, I want to say that to everybody out there that my DMs are open. The YouTube comments are open. If you disagree with this take, I'll argue it till the cows come home. But I think Philip Rivers can succeed in more places than Tom Brady can, because Tom Brady is the epitome of what a system quarterback is. He's the best system quarterback to ever do it, and I will never argue that. He's one of the best system QBs to ever do it. But I think that the only team that he, especially late in his career, that he can thrive with is the Patriots. And if he's not going to be a Patriot next season, it's going to be because he's sitting watching NFL football from his couch. It's an interesting talking point. Obviously, it's the offseason, and we need something to talk about. But Tom Brady isn't going anywhere but the Patriots. And if he goes anywhere but the Patriots, it'll be to retirement. And I think that that's how it should end, with a guy that's spent his whole career with the Patriots. That being said, I think that I can say the same thing about Philip Rivers. I think he just needs to call it quits. Obviously, Phil needs to spend a few more years in the NFL so that he can pay his all his kids through college. With what's he on, like 75 now? I think he's just got to stay in. He just got to keep pulling in a weekly check so that he can keep feeding his family. If he keeps popping them out the way he is, but I think that neither of them. Philip Rivers has to go somewhere. When they announce they're going to let him walk in free agency, I would be interested to see where he would succeed at. I like the Colts. I think that they're just a good QB away from a run. I could see a team like Miami making a run for him. I would be interested to see, with the Oakland talks about them wanting to go after a QB and Brady. That if maybe they would want to make a run at Philip Rivers, or if maybe a team like the Cowboys maybe could get him a little bit cheaper than what Dak is asking for. So I'd be interested to see where that would go. That being said, I think that neither of them, they're both on the tail end of their careers. I think Brady can succeed in one system, and that's Bill Belichick's system. Other than that, he's just not Tom Brady. He's not the GOAT. So.
Okay. Interesting point. I think I kind of have to agree with you with the Brady thing, even though I think what Hayden brought up with him going to the Colts, that'd be very interesting, because I would like to see how he works in the Colts system, because the Colts are very high IQ. The way they play is great, and they got young talents all over that offensive line. A few young pieces on the defense, Darius Leonard, Malik Hooker, etc. I think the Colts are also one good average, better than Jacoby Brissett QB away from fighting with the Jaguars. I'm at Texans for the AFC South title this next couple years. And Phillip Rivers, let me throw this out there. Phillip Rivers on a lower contract to the Bears, just in case Mitchell Trubisky doesn't work out the season. What do you think about that?
I think that's a way better option than Trubisky. I think I would be a little bit more worried because Chicago has a good defense. They have some weapons on the perimeter on the offensive side of the ball. They have some pieces in the running game. They've got a pretty decent offensive line. I think they're just missing a QB. I know I wouldn't say that I'd be scared that the Packers would not be, the reigning NFC North champions if that happened, but I definitely think that they'd be in the running for maybe second place or would finish a lot higher than they did this season.
Okay. Yeah, Hayden, go.
Yeah, I mean, not much to say there. I kind of have to agree. I do still think, Mitch Trubisky, as much as they, gave up to move up a couple spots for him, I do think he's worth another shot, though. And part of that is just because I want to see him take another shot to, assure the Packers get 2 wins next year. But, no, that'd be fun for them. But, yeah, I'd like to see Tom in Indianapolis, like you mentioned, Pete. That'd be my favorite offseason move to see, I think.
Okay, and one other thing I wanted to throw in here. It's kind of on the topic of QBs and possibly succeeding anywhere else. News came out today that Nick Foles might get released. Now, do we think it's a smart idea for the Jaguars to take a $16 million cap hit, $19 million cap hit, to release Nick Foles off this contract that is absolutely horrible? And do you think Nick Foles can still be a starting QB somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he can. I definitely think he can. And I have a tough time believing they just release him. Maybe you can get something for him, from a desperate team like Chicago, something like that. I don't think he, what was it, 4 years, 140 or something, Pete?
It was 4. No. I would hope we weren't paying him that much money. It was 4 years, 86, I think.
Yeah.
Or 3 years, 86. One of those.
I'm pretty sure, isn't the record like 137.5 or something right now?
Yeah.
That's my bad. But yeah, just a grotesque amount of money. And, he might still be better than Gardner Minshew right now, but, for how long will that last? Even if he is, obviously, Pete, you're in favor that he's not. But in terms of veteran leadership, experience, things like that, he certainly takes the edge, but I do think it's in the Jaguars' best interest to find some way to get him off the team, and I don't think, necessarily releasing him or cutting him or waiving him, whatever the term is. I don't think that's the way to do it.
Well, I mean, if you look at it from the Jaguars' perspective, they cut him now in $19 million cap hit. Next year, they save $25 million, I think it is. And you got to think that might be worth it, because if we're building a team around this year, if the Jaguars are looking to build a team and maybe not qualify for the playoffs this year, but hopefully get at it the year after that, in the long run, don't you think it'd be a better idea, Isaac?
What makes you think the Jaguars are capable of building a team? We keep throwing that word around. I don't really think we know what it truly means. I mean, yeah, you can have $24 million open in cap space if you let go of Foles, but what makes you think they're going to spend it, right? I mean, at this point, I think you hold on to him for another season. You see especially with their injury-prone quarterbacks.
Minshew is not injury-prone.
I don't think Minshew, and I obviously know you disagree. I don't think Minshew is the long-term answer. We'll see what happens after the sophomore slump. I know you're ready to crown him the second coming of Jesus Christ, but I think we just need to pump the brakes a little bit. And so I would hold on to him just for one season, and because I don't think he has the value. If you release him, if I'm the Jags, I'm trying to trade him. And if he has one more solid season, a stupid team like the Redskins or the Miami Dolphins or the Titans maybe are gonna pay just an ungodly amount of money to have somebody that's maybe a top 15 QB come and try to get him over the hump. But Who knows?
See, I don't get how you guys are talking about Nick Foles being. I mean, was that you that said possibly a top 15 QB? Are we really going there?
I mean, you do it off of pure. He's shown flashes of greatness. Like if we're gonna crown Minshew and what he did in one season and didn't even play a full season, we're gonna crown him. Multiple times you talked about him being a top 10 QB, and even went as far to include him in the top 5 conversation. Then you can't discount what Foles was able to do, first of all, in his Super Bowl run, but he also had flashes of greatness his rookie season and when he had the helm over in Philadelphia as a starter there. I don't think that I'm just ready to say throw him in the garbage. I definitely think he has top 15 potential. It's not because maybe that he's a great QB, but it's just straight up the fact that the NFL just doesn't have a ton of elite to great QBs. Like the difference between the best QB in the NFL and the 10th ranked QB in the NFL is probably the same amount of gap between the 32nd ranked quarterback and the 11th. Like there's a wide gap in quarterback play in the NFL right now. That can obviously change, especially with the new incoming quarterbacks coming in the new draft class. But I don't know why you're ready to just throw Nick Foles away. Obviously, he had a frustrating season for you guys, but I think that had a lot to do with your expectations coming into it, not a lot of what he actually did on the field.
All right, we're gonna move on, but just want to throw this out there real quick. He started 4 games or 3.5. We got blown out in all of them. He did absolutely horrible. More interceptions than touchdowns. I just want to throw that out there. And also, NFL.com writers ranking Minshew the 26th best quarterback in the league. I have a problem with that, and I would like to maybe have one of you guys on the show to debate if you're listening, which you're probably not. But Isaac, you got some right and wrongs for us, if I'm correct.
Sure do, Pete. Let's get it started off with Isaac's rights today. First of all, congratulations goes out to Troy Neidert. Happy birthday to him. I believe it's the big 5-0 today.
The big bicentennial, if you will. Yes, good for him. Spoke with him briefly. I'm actually talking to him as we speak. He's
awesome.
He's in good spirits. Got a pie, so
nice.
Happy.
Nice. If Troy, if you're listening, you don't look a day over 30. But hope you had a good birthday. Moving on. Congratulations to Giannis becoming a dad. Who knows what we're going to be seeing in 20 years? Maybe seeing some. What's his name? Liam? Did they name him Liam Giannis?
Liam.
Is that what I saw?
There's no Giannis in there.
Or sorry, what am I thinking? Sorry, Liam Antetokounmpo. What am I thinking here?
I think it's Liam Charles or something like that.
That is my mistake. But congratulations to him. I'm sure there's no happier feeling. Maybe getting a ring would be a bigger moment in his life, but we'll have to wait and see. For number 3, I was excited to see the XFL. Bold strategy for the XFL to say, hey, we're going to play football a week and a half after the Super Bowl, and we're going to trust that fans are going to be crazy about it, and they couldn't hit the nail more on the head. Because they're absolutely right. I thought the ratings were through the roof. Vince McMahon must be sitting on his couch with the biggest grin on his face. I was happy to see. Obviously, I had some Sooners that I wanted to see. Bob Stoops is back in action on the sideline for the Dallas Renegades, who I can say I've been a fan for as long as they've been a franchise. So I'm excited to see if they can take home the ship this year. But overall, I thought that there's a lot of signs for success. I'm excited to see what will happen in the offseason when you start to see players prove themselves on XFL rosters, start to see who kind of becomes head and shoulders over the other starters, and who gets a chance to again go to the NFL and see what they can do at the NFL level, whether they were already at the NFL level or never got a shot. So I do have 3 wrongs. My first one is the Chargers letting Phillip Rivers go. I don't really agree with it because I don't understand what they want to do better at the position. I don't understand why you don't pay him one more year, and then you then take a peek. You You put a developmental QB behind him, whether it's your first round pick, whether you move up in the draft, whatever you do in the draft, you can have a veteran step up and lead for at least a year. You know what he is. He's not, probably going to get you to a Super Bowl run. He's going to probably get you more interceptions than he will touchdowns, but he's going to have exciting games. You know what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get with a rookie QB. And have somebody there, give him a year, give him 2 years to develop, get used to the speed of the NFL. Don't understand that move. Second wrong. I am not excited to see reports of the MLB already starting again. It just felt like yesterday that I was having to watch the World Series. Not a big baseball guy, so I'm really sad to see that the pitchers and catchers are already reporting, because it seems like last week it all ended. So, as a kid growing up, I really dreaded baseball season coming around, because it meant that the ESPN top 10 was going to be filled with a bunch of these outfielders making crazy catches. Nothing wrong with that. It just makes me sad, makes me miss football. The third wrong is a lady by the name of Casey. I believe her last name is Dingus. And if you're under the age of 18 on the podcast, I might turn it off or leave the room if your parents are listening. But she came out with a report on not a report, but an alleged affair with Baker Mayfield. After he had been married for a month to his current wife, Emily, she allegedly gave Baker Mayfield a in the corner of the parking lot at Cheesecake Factory. And the reason this is a wrong, and again, if the reports are true, great. That I think that speaks to Baker Mayfield's character. I can't defend that, obviously, but nothing in her report makes me think that she went out on a radio show and talked about it. Nothing on there makes me think it's legit. And that's sad that she can make those kind of claims. People are going to rush to judgment on Baker Mayfield, because obviously Baker Mayfield can do no wrong. He is the second coming of Jesus Christ. And it's impossible for him to make any mistakes or screw up in my eyes. So just so we're all clear on that one, there's no possible way that he did this. Why, of all places, a Cheesecake Factory? And why, when you have a dime of a wife at home, why somebody else is my question. But I'll move on after that one. You guys have any responses to that?
Yeah, simple. Emily Wilkinson, I just want to let you know that Gardner Flint Minshew II would never, ever do that to you, because he's a loyal man, and I guarantee you Baker Mayfield did it. Hey.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I didn't read into it that far. I saw that she was, saying stuff about Baker, but I had no idea, Cheesecake Factory. I got a tough time believing it. Definitely don't think it was, what's the word?
Pete, shall we move on to some mailbag questions for Mailbag Wednesday?
Yeah, move on to this mailbag questions. By the way, Emily Wilkinson, Gardner Minshew single. All right, go ahead, continue.
There's a reason for that, Pete. Okay, first question. A listener named Caleb wants to know, where do we really think Phillip Rivers is going to go? I know we just touched on that, so it should be easy predictions. You guys just want to throw out a team?
So, Buccaneers.
You say Bucks, Hayden?
Yeah, Bucks.
Okay, I like that. I think I'm going to go with Oakland. Next question. Wags asked, what should the Sixers do if they get bumped from the playoffs early? If they had to trade Simmons or Embiid, which one would they trade?
You 100% trade Joel Embiid. I think even just speaking off what we saw here last night at the Sixers-Clippers game, I believe the Sixers did win a close one there, 110 to 103 or something like that. But Joel Embiid got booed by the Sixers fans, in the home crowd on his introduction, and largely due, to how much potential he has and how much he is not using it. I think Ben Simmons, he doesn't have a shot, but he's still working and getting better at every other part of his game, rebounding, passing, combo guard. His defense obviously has still been improving. And I'll always say, clearly Ben Simmons isn't Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he's the same kind of player in the way that, as he continues to improve and you surround him with, two-way wings, 3-point shoot, big 3-and-D guys. I think that's a recipe for success. Whereas you surround Joel Embiid, I don't know if you necessarily can surround him. I think he's such a ball dominant player that unfortunately I don't think his numbers, match up with how many times the ball is in his hands throughout a game. And for that reason, I think you take Ben Simmons, the younger guy, less injury prone, who really has the potential. The sky's the limit for a guy like him.
If you were to ask me just off the top of my head, take a point guard who can't shoot or a generational center who's injury prone. Well, you leave out the injury prone. A generational center who can do almost everything and shoot better than Ben Simmons. I would probably say trade the point guard that can't shoot. However, seeing what Joel Embiid done on Twitter and gone mocking everyone, and Jimmy Butler said there's a place for villains like us, and then maybe hinted about him going to Miami, something like that. I would trade Joel Embiid for sure. I don't know how much worse the Sixers would get trading Joel Embiid. I think they would get worse. But they might as well see what you can get for him.
I think I'll move on after this, but I think if you take out the injury proneness, I think that's the single reason I would have to trade Embiid over Simmons. My question is, how much longer are we going to keep throwing out the word potential with Ben Simmons? When is it going to turn from potential to statistics? When's it going to turn from potential to he's a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA? We're going to do this for another decade? Because it just seems like it's kind of what it's turning out to be. Is he going to develop a shot? Is he not? Obviously an athlete, but we will see. Next question. Should the Portland Trailblazers blow it all up? They're a 10 seed. They have some players, but with the Warriors coming up next season and having all their players return, should they blow it all up, make some moves, open up some cap space?
This year it's tough, because I certainly think they're good enough to be in there. But you get a team like Memphis who's so hot here and over 500 now. I want to say they're the 7 seed, or maybe the 8. I can't remember. But I know that the Blazers are 3.5, 4 games back or something like that out of the race. And that's tough. That'll be post All-Star break here. It's tough to come back from. You really got to rely on a couple of the lower teams kind of dropping off, which some of them are, much, or several games better than the Blazers. But unfortunately, they had such a rocky start. They still don't have Yusuf Nurkic. He'll be a nice addition if he can come back this year. The Carmelo Anthony signing was, I think, good for him, but clearly Carmelo Anthony isn't what he once was. And I've said this for a couple of years. I would love to see the Blazers trade C.J. McCollum. Damian Lillard, obviously, in my opinion, is the best point guard in the NBA. And C.J. McCollum is just, he's like Drew Holiday. He's good at what he does, but he's overpaid to do it.
It's a fantastic comparison.
I agree.
Yeah. And I would just like to see, if you could get a guy, obviously far-fetched, but, a player like Devin Booker alongside Dame, just another 3-point shooting, stud who has the ability to create his own shot. CJ doesn't really. He's, you know what I'm saying. He's almost like a Chris Middleton category, I do think Chris Middleton is better, though, on both ends of the floor. But to answer the question directly, I think that they should blow it up for that reason. I don't think CJ's getting better. They're going to lose Hassan Whiteside. Nurkic will be back, but I think they should definitely make a big move here this offseason.
I agree. I think they should trade C.J. McCollum, get rid of him. You're paying $30 million for a guy when you could probably pay an extra $4 million to maybe get someone better or second bigger all-star to go there.
So this next question is at Hayden from his sister. I'll let him have a few seconds to explain the backstory to it, but she wants to know where you're going to go on your honeymoon. Congrats on the wedding, by the way, buddy.
Oh, that was a great time. Yeah, I had to model as a groom, for a bridal or a wedding show of some sort. A bunch of different companies, flower companies or clothing or, centerpiece, whatever it was. Kind of had a whole exhibit there, and I had to model as the groom. I thought about it. I am ordained, Isaac, as you know, and I probably could have tricked Hannah, the bride, right into marrying me, and she wouldn't have even known. But I did not do that.
What a good guy.
Well, yeah, I figured it was fair to, give her that decision. But no, it was a ton of fun. I saw some of the pictures and they look really, we look married, I didn't know that I looked at her that way, but they did a good job at telling me how to look. So, ton of fun. And yes, the honeymoon Kerrigan will be none other than the Liberty Mutual Wausau office here throughout the week.
Hey, that's where I'm going on my honeymoon too, believe it or not. The next question comes from a faithful listener and my brother Asher. He wants to know what the Packers are going to be doing at middle linebacker next season. Pete, you want to take this one?
I think you got to look in the draft, and I don't know, put me on the spot like that. I'm not the biggest Packers.
He also wants to know, and Hayden, you can take this too. Should they let Blake Martinez walk? I'm a firm believer. Yes, we let him walk. We open up some cap space and we take Kenneth Murray in the draft.
Yes, you know what? I'm going to go with that too. I agree. I think Kenneth Murray is the best option for them.
Yeah, and if not, I still say let Blake Martinez walk. I think you'd have to pay him too much to do too little.
All right. Next question. Another listener asked, again, what we just talked about earlier in the show, is Brady really going to leave the Pats? Does he stick with the Pats or does he leave?
He said he's going to play till he's 45, and I think that's something to take in. I think he'll play till he's 45 no matter where he is. And does he stick to the Pats? I think Bill Belichick wanted to get rid of him quite a little bit ago because he was not too happy with the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. Does he stick with the Pats? I don't know. It's a coin flip for me.
Yeah, I can't tell. It's at first I didn't believe it. Now I believe it a little too much. If I had, right now, take a guess, I think he's a Patriot next year.
I agree. I think he's going to be a Patriot next year. On the Garoppolo thing, I don't think that was that big of a whiff. I don't think he's the quarterback that everybody thinks he is. I listened to Pete's take last week, or a couple of last show, and I completely agree with Pete's take on that one. The last question, and you guys can take a few seconds to think on this one, because I have a answer to this one. But what is a weird conspiracy that you actually believe? And I'll take this one to give you guys a chance to think. But so I believe that the Prime Minister of Canada, his name's Justin Trudeau, I believe that he is the illegitimate son of Fidel Castro.
Wow.
And the reason I say this is because Justin Trudeau's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Trudeau, great friends with Fidel Castro when he was the dictator of Canada. Obviously, we don't condone Fidel Castro on this podcast. We're just strictly talking about him. Also, biggest point that you can compare the two, Justin Trudeau has a brother. His brother has pink nipples. Justin Trudeau does not. He has brown nipples. And just saying, I'm a very white Caucasian male with very white Caucasian parents. I too have pink nipples. And if you take a peek, just Google them real quick. Take a picture of both of them. Put them side by side. Google the images. They look identical. That's all I'm saying.
I've seen that. I have to agree. I mean, I don't agree. I don't think they're brothers, but I've seen that, father son, and they do kind of look alike. For me, I believe Adolf Hitler did not kill himself in May of 45. I think, they never did find his body, they said. Supposedly he shot himself as his wife took pills, but they never found his body down there. So there's talk that maybe he went to Argentina. I believe he did. I saw a picture once that looked all too real of him as an old dude, and it just looked too real. But the storyline makes sense. I looked into it a little bit, and I don't think he's still alive, but I think he lived for quite a while in Argentina after World War II.
For me, it's easy. JFK was killed by the government because JFK was going to be a great president, and he was going to expose the inside secrets of our government and how they run things so corrupt, and they decided to kill him.
That's a wonderful one to read into. Go ahead and do that, listeners.
And that's all I got. Again, DM me, Peter or Hayden, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Text us, or leave a comment down on YouTube if you got for next week's Wednesday mailbag. We're happy to answer them. Send us anything you got.
Yes, and then before we go here, ending the podcast, I got a quick question. I want quick answers from this because it is not MLB season totally yet, and I know Isaac probably doesn't even want to answer it. So mainly just Hayden. I was seeing the rankings of the best bullpens in each division, and they had the Brewers as the best bullpen in the NL Central. Do you agree with that, Hayden?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think that has necessarily even been the criticism for the Brewers the last 2 years is their starting pitching, not their bullpen. That's what they need to find. I mean, we go to the bullpen in the fourth inning more often than not. I mean, you wonder, thinking back to the wild card game here this past fall with the Nationals, we took out Woodruff after the fourth, and we went straight to the bullpen.
Stupid move.
Yeah,
Woodruff
and then we had to put in Hader for 2 innings, and he had to go against the top of the order there, and they ended up shelling him. Now, he didn't throw well, but and I can't remember, it was that guy that they had gotten at the deadline. Maybe you'll remember his name, that lefty.
It's on the tip of my tongue, but it's not.
Yeah, I can't think of it. Maybe Drew something. I don't remember, but
Drew Pomeranz.
Yes, yeah. He threw well, and Woodruff threw well, but at the same time, if Woodruff can throw 5 or 6, still not necessarily a long game by any means. High school pitchers throwing 7 innings all the time. And then you go to him for 1 or 2 and then go to Hader. I do think that game turns out differently, which obviously, as we saw the Nationals do, it changes the entire, outlook of the playoffs.
Yeah.
But in terms of bullpen, absolutely. I think they got guys there for sure that kind of put them over the edge. The rest of the division has, starting pitching, but the Brewers, the bullpen is pretty much all they got.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. I also think I mean, this is a totally different subject, so I'll just touch on this real quick, but Brandon Woodruff, I mean, that still just angers me they took him out. We're talking about a guy with a 3.3 ERA, and we're taking him out in the 4th inning in a wild card game when we know our bullpen was shaky the past week of the season. Ugh, just frustrates me. Isaac, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think as much as the Brewers having elite bullpen, although I do think that they're as close to elite as it gets in the NL. I think it's just how bad the rest of the bullpens are in the Central. I think that costs a lot of teams a deep run into the playoffs. We're talking the clubs left a lot to be desired. I know the Cardinals did. They tried to move some starting pitching to the bullpen to get some help in there with the move of Carlos Martinez. Didn't help at all. That dude was getting shellacked every day. And, I would have been a better off-speed pitcher. Put me in there throwing 55 right down the pipe. That would have been the better choice looking at the end of the season. But yeah, I think it has less to do with the Brewers having elite pitching talent in the bullpen and more to do with the rest of the NL Central lacking it.
All right, so that's going to wrap us up for episode 7 of the Here We Go Again podcast. Just a reminder, we'll have another episode out next Monday. Currently is February 12th, 2020. You boys like to say goodbye?
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Can't wait to be back this weekend.
Glad to be back. Thank you guys for holding it down while I was gone. I appreciate it.
No problem. It's always good to have the Boomer Sooner back on the podcast. And here we go again.